In this video, we're going to talk about the Buyer Loyalty Flow Report in the brand module. Now, this report has a few different ways that you can run things, but before we get into the actual report prompts, let's take a look at the Help Center article. So in the Help Center, you'll be able to see that the Buyer Loyalty Flow Report will help you understand the buyers of your brands and categories and how they have shifted their purchase behavior over time. So you'll be able to see things like loyalty, if they're buying your brand versus different brands, etc. So going back into the report, of course, we'll select our brand and our category, our time range, a time period to compare to, either last year or the prior period, people groups, any selected store, and of course you can select your parent channel, your static group, and then with this you can also select the product level for the output that you want to see. So for this first report we're looking at Blue Buffalo dry dog food, and we want to understand how those buyers have shifted their loyalty. We're looking just over the past 12 months versus a year ago, specifically at PetSmart, and I've asked to get the brand level back for the product level. And we're looking at our brick and mortar static group. The first thing you'll notice is I do have a few different segments that I can select. So let's look at offline only buyers first. And then the other option here is to choose what product I want. So since I selected the brand level in my advanced options, I'm going to see all of the different levels of brands or all of the different brands available that are under the Blue Buffalo parent brand. So let's take a look at Blue Buffalo Basics. Then we also have our metrics. So if I leave it at percent of households for now, if I scroll down, we'll be able to see 97% of people in the previous period were non-buyers. Our highest percentage was 1.1% of households are what we consider exclusive. So they only purchase Blue Buffalo dry dog food. If I look in the post period, we have increased that exclusive to 1.2. Our total non-buyers 97.2. But let's take a look at a different metric. So let's look at percent of product spend. So here we'll be able to see how things have shifted specifically for that percent of spend. So obviously we have substantially more exclusive buyers than we see from the previous period. Not nearly as many loyal, so it looks like we've shifted quite a bit of the loyal people down to exclusive, which is good. Exclusive means they are only buying our brand. Then we have a little bit more occasional and maybe the same amount of light buyers. So if I scroll down, I would be able to compare all of those, see how things have grown. I'll have a point change over here, and then you'll also be able to see that raw count. So do take note of this raw buyer count because a buyer count of 3 is pretty low to factor any major decisions on. So there are other metrics in here that you can look at, but we will move on to tab 2, which is loyalty shifting. So this tab again will allow us to select which of the brands we want to look at. So again, let's look at basics. And then again, we can look at the different metrics. So if I scroll down here just to be able to see this, now we're looking at these basics buyers, Blue Buffalo Basics, the percent of households for each of these segments. So we have of all buyers, of online only buyers, which we selected PetSmart. So seems that nobody's really purchasing from PetSmart.com, at least with our brick and mortar segment. And then we have our offline only buyers, which means they only shop in stores. And then we have both those offline and online buyers merged together. But again, if we change to percent of product spend, we'll see this fill out quite a bit more. So here we can see people that are remaining loyal versus newly loyal. We can see if they are remaining disloyal or if they are lost loyals. So this is looking at what their behavior was last year versus this year and then putting them into new buckets. So we knew how many people were loyal before or what their spend was, but now we can see how many of those people are newly loyal versus remaining. Of course, you can compare this with different products and see how each of the brands compete or compare against each other. And then the last tab in here is the comparison tab. So this will allow you to, again, select your level of buyer segment that you want to look at. So we'll stick with this offline only buyer. And then we'll be able to see the category average and then some of the top brands sold at PetSmart and where their loyalty levels lie. So we do see that Hill's Science Diet has the most purchasers in general, and they definitely have the most exclusive purchasers. But remember, we are comparing that to individual brands. So here we have Blue Buffalo in 2 different spots, whereas if we were to have ran this at the parent brand level, these 2 numbers would be all rolled into one. So Blue Buffalo might actually give Hill's Science Diet a run for their money a little bit more. Again, as always, you can scroll down to the bottom and see all of the information down in the table. Now I did run this one other way just to show the flexibility of this report. So now we're going to shift to Dove as a parent brand within the health and beauty sector. And we want to look specifically at the product level category. So we're no longer looking at by brand. This time we're looking at by category, just to be able to show you exactly what this looks like. So again, we have this summary tab here. We can see if people are occasional or light buyers. We can change this to say offline only, and then we can actually select the category here. So whatever you put in this advanced option here is going to determine what's in this product drop down here. And by the way, this was at any store, not at PetSmart. So that's the difference of running it in those two different ways. Of course, there's multiple ways to run this beyond just these two, but hopefully this gives you a good example of different ways to run this report and then how to read it. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on our support chat.